recording. Okay, and here we go.
Welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. We will be beginning shortly. We're just waiting for everybody to join us online. So give us a minute or two. We ready to go? Hillary, or how many? Should we start, or are we still waiting for a bunch?
We have 31 people in our meeting so far.
Okay. I think we should go ahead and get started. Everyone good? Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for the second of 4 online community engagement meetings for Salt Lake County's West General Plan, which is a high-level, long-range document to help guide the future of the western third of the county, with an emphasis on the unincorporated areas. I'm Brian Wilkinson of Wilkinson Ferrari and Company Communications. I'm part of the project team, and I'll be your MC for this evening. We have a lot to cover, and let me just go over the agenda briefly. If you could put that up on the screen, Hillary. Oh, okay. No, there we go. Thank you. In just a moment, I'll briefly introduce the group of folks who are here this evening to answer your questions and comments. Then we'll watch a short video. It's about 10 minutes or so that describes the need and the opportunities, the need for the general plan, the planning process, and the progress that has been made to date on it. That will be followed by a presentation by Salt Lake County planners with more details about the needs and opportunities of the areas the planning process will focus on. We'll talk about, there are actually 3 areas and that are included in the general plan, excuse me. We'll touch on all of those this evening, but the focus of our discussion tonight will be on the Central Oquirrhs area, which includes unincorporated county areas, as well as parts of West Jordan, South Jordan, Copperton, and Herriman. Following that presentation, it should last 20 minutes or so. We will have plenty of time for a question and answer session with our group of experts. And we plan to adjourn promptly at 7 p.m. One last thing before introducing our panel. Since this is an online meeting, you'll have 2 options to ask a question or make a comment. You can use the Q&A function, the Q&A button on the Zoom control panel at the bottom of your screen. And you can click on that, type any question, type a question anytime throughout the meeting tonight, and they will be, we'll receive those and they'll be queued up and ready to go, ready to ask during the Q&A session. If you'd rather ask a question or make a comment verbally, you can do that as well. Just click on the raise hand button, which should also be down on the little control panel. And we'll call on you during the Q&A and you can make your comment verbally. Just remember to write down your question since we won't have a record of it in the Q&A. Let's see. If you have any questions about the technical stuff, the Q&A function, raise hands, you can use the chat button, yet another button, and Hillary Robertson from our team will help you. And we'll go over all of that, again, how to ask questions when we get to the Q&A session. Let's briefly now introduce our panel of experts who are here tonight to answer your questions and respond to comments. You can see them on your screen here. We have Helen Peters, who is Transportation Program Manager for Salt Lake County. Ryan Perry, Director of Regional Planning and Transportation for the county. Jordan Carroll is Communications Manager for the county. Jake Young, who you'll be hearing from in just a moment, is the Project Manager and the Program Planning Manager for the county. Joining us from the Wasatch Front Regional Council is Christy Dahlberg. She's Community Development Planner. Thomas McMurtry is a transportation consultant. He's working on the plan with Helen and the rest of the county team. I introduced myself already, and then finally we have Shane Swenson from the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District to talk about all things water. Okay, so thank you to all of them for being here, and thanks to you for taking the time out of your night to be here to talk about this important subject. Let's get on with the show, I think. So how about we watch the overview video? Yes, there's a voice.
Brian?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Ryan.
Oh,
talking. Hi. Before we move on, can I just recognize a few people? And this is always scary to do because you probably miss some folks. But wanted to recognize Mayor Burton with us from West Jordan City, Representative Tesher, and Catherine Cantor, our Salt Lake County Deputy Mayor over Regional Services. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks for doing that, Ryan. It's a little, in this world of Zoom, it's a little hard to see who's in the audience sometimes, so I appreciate that. Okay, well, let's get the video queued up and we'll watch that. Again, it's about 10 minutes long, and then we'll reconnect and hear more from the team.
I'm Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson, and I'm standing here on the county's beautiful west side with the vast Great Salt Lake and its wetlands to the north and the towering Oquirrh Mountains behind me. Utah and Salt Lake County have grown quickly in recent years and will continue to for the foreseeable future. Growth can bring great opportunities to our residents and communities, but it can also bring challenges that require us to work collaboratively and proactively to plan for tomorrow and beyond. Salt Lake County is planning for the future of the large unincorporated areas along the West Bench and the Great Salt Lake shoreline, as well as planning for other opportunities and challenges that we will face as the county continues to grow. We thank you for investing your time in helping to shape the future of Salt Lake County by sharing your feedback, and we look forward to working with you to make our community a beautiful, safe, sustainable, and thriving place to live and work.
Salt Lake County, Utah's most populous area, has more than 1.2 million residents today and is expected to grow to 1.8 million people or more by the year 2065. That's a third more residents, 600,000 more over the next 40+ years. While this may sound like a long time, it will be here before we know it, especially considering the amount of time it takes to adequately plan and prepare for sustainable growth. So where will these new residents live? Some new residents will live within existing cities located in the eastern 2/3 of Salt Lake County, while many more will likely reside in the western third. This area contains most of the remaining vacant, developable land, and is where approximately 60% of the county's growth has occurred since 2000. This map shows land that can potentially be developed within existing cities and townships, as well as land in unincorporated Salt Lake County that could be developed in the long term. Planning for and managing growth is critically important, yet it's not an easy thing to do. Planning for growth is a shared responsibility that involves government agencies at the federal, state, county, and municipal levels. All municipalities and counties are required to have long-range plans for the future, called general plans. Counties are responsible for land use planning in unincorporated areas. In Salt Lake County, this includes Wasatch Canyons and large parcels of unincorporated land in the western portion of the county. Funds for many growth-related issues, such as road construction and transit, are distributed through multi-county agencies, like the Wasatch Front Regional Council, or transportation agencies like UDOT and UTA. Salt Lake County started the West General Plan process in 2018 and is expected to conclude in 2021. Planning for and managing growth is critically important and requires a series of steps, beginning with an inventory and assessment of existing conditions, such as the existence of roads, utilities, and other infrastructure and their condition, the types of nearby land uses, priorities laid out in adjacent cities' general plans, the availability of water, the county's ability to provide services to new development, and plans of surrounding private landowners. Once the detailed research is complete, the next step is to share that information with residents and local officials, seek their comments, and listen to suggestions through open houses, presentations, workshops, and online surveys. For example, since the West General Plan process began, the county has held over 25 engagement meetings and conducted 2 online surveys. The first survey, seeking feedback on growth issues with the plan, received a total of 2,534 responses and 1,268 comments. The second survey on the vision statements had 2,066 responses and 3,876 comments. To plan for growth and land conservation, the county needs to evaluate the challenges and opportunities presented by both and find the balance between them. Growth can bring new job prospects, increased sales tax revenue, greater variety in housing, and more and improved community amenities. However, growth can also bring significant challenges, making it difficult to provide housing for new residents, build roads and transit systems, extend utilities, and provide desired parks and recreation opportunities. And importantly, growth can also raise concerns from current residents about how the county can accommodate new neighbors and development without harming the existing quality of life. Conserving critical lands, habitat, and natural recreation resources also requires careful thought. It takes specific planning, financial resources, and long-term commitments by the public and governments. To illustrate how Western Salt Lake County can grow and provide significant opportunity for those who live, work, learn, and play there, a series of vision statements were drafted based on community input. The public was then asked to review these statements and provide comments via an online survey. The survey results convey what residents feel the future for Western Salt Lake County can be. 68%, more than 2/3 of survey respondents, said they agree with the plan's draft vision statement. Salt Lake County's vision is that the West areas provide enduring communities, employment centers, and open spaces. Communities are integrated with a multimodal transportation system and driven by a commitment to respect the landscape, conserve natural systems, and develop public resources. These future communities consist of a variety of districts, centers, and neighborhoods, each creating safe and beautiful places for our children, current and future generations, to live and work. Residents who took the survey also had positive reactions to more specific vision statements about land use, transportation, recreation, environment and conservation, economy, housing, and utilities and public safety. As Salt Lake County looked at its role in planning for the future of unincorporated areas, 3 geographic zones stood out for the West General Plan: the Great Salt Lake Shoreline, North and Central Oquirrh Mountains, and the Southwest Oquirrhs and Camp Williams. Each of these areas presents unique opportunities and challenges. The Great Salt Lake Shoreline includes a mixture of large preserved wildlife habitat, bird refuges, private waterfowl management areas, and some of the last working farms in the county. It plays a key role in protecting the Great Salt Lake through water rights, natural land conservation, and the preservation of historic uses. Some significant challenges in the area include the shrinking of the Great Salt Lake and changing adjacent uses, including the construction of the new Utah State Correctional Facility, and ensuring that current and future land uses remain compatible with the preservation of habitat for migratory birds and other wildlife. In the northern and central parts of the Oquirrh Mountains, where much of the land is privately owned by Rio Tinto Kennecott, the focus is on mining reclamation, conserving land for future parks, recreation and natural green spaces, and potential future residential communities and job centers. The southwestern corner of the county, including Camp Williams, offers significant potential for multiple high-quality recreation opportunities in Butterfield, Yellow Fork, and Rose Canyons. The area also offers the potential for partnering with the state on land conservation, fire protection, and public safety in the Camp Williams area. So, what happens next with the West General Plan? Over the next several months, the county will seek additional public feedback about the 3 geographic areas of focus, including soliciting suggestions about how to achieve community goals in each area. After a series of engagement activities, a draft West General Plan will be presented to the County Planning Commission and County Council for review. Both governing bodies will hold public hearings which will provide additional opportunities for the community to give their input. Once approved, county officials will start working with communities, landowners, municipalities, and other stakeholders to implement the plan.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about the importance of the West General Plan and how we are investing in the future of Western Salt Lake County. This plan shows us what the Great Salt Lake Shoreline, the Oquirrh Mountains, and the Southern Traverse Ridge area could look like in 40 years. Some of the items in the general plan are applicable today. Others will be better preparing us for the coming decades. The input we receive from county residents is vital to shaping our future, acknowledging population growth while maintaining the high quality of life we enjoy today. I encourage you to learn more about this process and stay up to date on the latest involvement opportunities by visiting the project website. On behalf of all of us in Salt Lake County, thank you again.
Okay. Let's see, are we back, Hillary? Okay, great. Well, thank you. Hope everyone found the video provided a good overview of why and how the West General Plan is being done. Now, let's dig a bit deeper and explore the needs and opportunities of the planning areas that were talked about in the video, with an emphasis tonight on the Central Oquirrhs area. And let me just point out that we have 2 more of these meetings coming up, one tomorrow night about the Northern Oquirrhs, and then the final meeting on Monday, the Southwest Oquirrhs and Camp Williams areas. So, and you're free to attend any of them or all of them, and please do if you'd like to. Now I'd like to introduce again Jake Young, Salt Lake County Planner and Project Manager for the West General Plan. He's going to walk us through a presentation about some more of the details about Central Oquirrhs and the rest of the areas. as well as Helen Peters, Salt Lake County Transportation Planner, who will say a few words about the transportation elements of the plan, since transportation is such an integral part of planning process like this. So Jake, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Brian.
Sure.
And thank you to everybody for joining us on St. Patrick's Day. Thank you for taking time out of your busy evening. I hope it's been an enjoyable spring day. And so tonight, I'm going to share some background, a little bit information on all the areas of plan, and we'll talk a little bit more, as Brian mentioned, on the Oquirrhs as part of the plan. And I will mention this, that the presentation tonight is actually the same as tomorrow night. The reason we did two is to have two audiences, one for the North Oquirrhs and one for the Central Oquirrhs, but the presentation material is the same. And you'll notice, for those of you who attended Monday night, you'll also see some of the same slides as well. What is a general plan? Well, it's a long-range plan or comprehensive plan for counties. Cities also have general plans, and if you live in a city, a town, or metro town, your city also has a general plan. General plans are general in nature and not detailed master plans. Typically, they consider a 15 to 20-year planning horizon, but this plan goes even a little farther into the future, looking at 40, 50 years. General plans are required by Utah State Code for all counties and cities. This diagram shows the process of general plans, are again more general, generic, big picture plans. And as you move up in the planning scale to transportation master plans, capital improvement plans, zoning and site plans, it becomes more detailed as you move towards implementation. What is required in general plans? Land use, transportation, and housing. The West General Plan will also include environment and conservation, recreation, economy, utilities, and public safety. As mentioned in the video, there's three areas of the plan we're looking at: the shoreline area, the North and Central Oquirrhs, the Southwest, and the Traverse Mountains. And also, I should mention, the Oquirrhs do continue down into Utah County, and so that could be considered the Southern Oquirrhs as well. In 2018, we began existing conditions research, looking at growth not only in unincorporated, but Western Salt Lake County, the growth that's happened in the western part. And that's what you'll see in this map before you. You can look this up at oquirrhview.org and look at some of the research and how Salt Lake County has grown over the past 20 years in the western part of Salt Lake County. 2019, we did a survey with the public, looking at what are the big issues in terms of what are people concerned about. That is found on our project website. As part of this project, we've been working with landowners, cities, land managers. We've been out in the field. We've been in city offices. We've been out really meeting with people on the ground, learning from them and listening as part of this project. As part of this project, we've been having ongoing Planning Commission review and discussion, a regular steering committee review, also meetings with stakeholders and elected officials on regular basis, and then public surveys and public meetings like tonight. All good general plans and plans have a vision to them. In the video you saw, you heard the vision for the overall plan. Well, also their vision for the 7 different elements of the general plan: land use, housing, transportation, environment, conservation, recreation, economy, utilities, and public safety. Each of these elements has a vision to it. We took that vision and we shared it with the public to receive feedback. Over 2,000 responses, 3,800 comments, really good detail and response on that. And we thank you to the public and those of you that participated in that survey. As mentioned in the video, this process began in 2018 and is expected to conclude later this year. Here are the 4 meetings that Brian mentioned. Okay, I'm going to share just a few things on the shoreline area, a few things on the Southern Oquirrhs and Camp Williams, and then more information, more discussion on the Central Oquirrhs. The shoreline area is up by the Great Salt Lake at the south tip of the Great Salt Lake. There are generally 3 landowner groups, you could say, or land management areas: waterfowl areas in yellow, agriculture in green, and Audubon bird habitat in blue. This slide talks a little bit about some of the issues this area is facing. The Great Salt Lake is shrinking. There are threats from road expansions, corridor expansions, also adjacent land uses changing in the area, illegal dumping, invasive species. The biggest opportunity for this area is to preserve the land and habitat. And that can happen by the creation of buffers and continual preservation of the farms and also the habitat areas. Some of the recommendations for this area include promoting awareness of the shoreline area and the ecological contribution to the Great Salt Lake watershed, future land use and zoning changes focused on conservation or additional conservation, more efforts on water conservation. And I want to emphasize this point of water conservation. That's not only for the shoreline area, but for all the plan, all future development, and the whole plan should have a weaving thread of water conservation through it. Ensure that future transportation and utilities are compatible with conservation goals, explore and consider additional conservation tools, and then also collaboration on invasive weeds. For our future land use, we're showing shoreline conservation, and again, that's conservation of agriculture and habitat. Now we're going to jump down to the south part of the county, and then we'll move to the middle. Nice view of the Oquirrhs there, Yellow Fork, Rose Canyon area. Down in the southwest, this area, in terms of ownership, and I'm looking south of Butterfield Canyon, that is the yellow line you see there on the map before you. The green areas are privately owned. Most of that is high country estates. In the rose color is BLM, Salt Lake County, the Yellow Fork and Rose Canyon Park areas in orange, and then Camp Williams in blue. The issues that are grayed out are also the same as the Central Oquirrhs, so I'll touch on them when we get to that part. But for the Butterfield Canyon area, there's increasingly significant recreational demands on the area. Butterfield Canyon does have a very narrow road width, debris, graffiti, lack of cellular service, lack of amenities, need for additional maintenance. Camp Williams is facing incompatible adjacent development, trespassing, wildfire risks, and poaching. The opportunities for this area, specifically Butterfield Canyon, is that it really could become a major outdoor recreation destination, kind of like Mill Creek or Corner Canyon or other areas in Salt Lake County where people drive and recreate and have good amenities. Opportunities for trails, opportunity for landowners to work together. With Camp Williams, the biggest opportunity is collaborating with them in terms of this buffer that they're creating around the base, which not only is buffering the risks of the military training and the adjacent development, but this buffer can also be habitat preservation and also recreation for trails. Some of the recommendations for this area include recreation, conservation, rural, residential, and military. We're recommending that Salt Lake County do a Butterfield Canyon plan looking at the road corridor, but also bringing in the recreation and trail planning that's currently happening for this area. Landowners to collaborate in this area, and then also the need to develop plans to finance improvements for Butterfield Canyon. For Camp Williams, there's a need to acknowledge and support the continued operation of what they do. As mentioned before, collaborate with Camp Williams for the land buffering that they're doing. And then also for high country estates to continue as rural residential. Here's what this looks like on a map. The rural residential in purple, conservation areas in green, recreation in yellow, and then the military in gray. Now we're going to move on to a discussion about the North and Central Oquirrhs. Nice view of the Oquirrhs. In terms of land ownership, primarily Kennecott Rio Tinto is the landowner. The areas that you see in tan, kind of sand color, those are Kennecott properties in this area, which is the majority of the area. There are other private properties. The last holdout in pink there on the bottom or the south, and then also some other private properties in green that you see on the map. One thing when doing planning for the Oquirrhs that we've really been considering and studying is looking at the topography. And the topography of the Oquirrh Mountains is very different than the Wasatch. You'll see that this cross section or this slice through Salt Lake Valley. You see on the right, Wasatch Bench is steeper and increases at a steeper rate. But the Oquirrhs are a little bit more gradual and rolling and build up. And then they are steeper at the back, as you can see from the 3D model on the bottom. When considering the habitat, for mammals, there is elk habitat up higher and on the north, and also mule deer, primarily on the benches, which moves down in the benches and connects into the Camp Williams area. There's also significant bird habitat and other kinds of animals as well in the Oquirrhs. A little bit background on the main historical use, which is mining. Bingham began mining in about 1906. Today it is the deepest and largest open pit mine in the world, approximately 3/4 of a mile deep and 2.5 miles wide. About 11,500 acres have been reclaimed, and that's been a cost of more than $500 million. Currently, according to documents, the proposed operation timeframe is early to mid 2030s, but that can be extended as it has been in the past in terms of mining operation. Some of the issues facing this area include post-mining impacts, east to west traffic, the need for additional transportation systems, need for more local jobs on the west part of Salt Lake County, water availability, utility infrastructure for fast-growing areas that we're seeing in all cities in western and southwestern Salt Lake County, potential loss of habitat and forested areas in the Oquirrhs, land development and growing population near an active mining area, wildfire risks, housing affordability, and then also air quality affecting all of us in Salt Lake and Wasatch Front. What are the opportunities for this area? Well, the biggest opportunity is time to plan. There's time to plan for transportation solutions. Related to mining, opportunities include reclamation, conservation of natural lands and habitats, development of new recreational trails and parks, potential for clean energy, potential for master planned communities with centers, jobs, housing, and recreational open space. Potential Midas area could be developed in the near to midterm, and that's about 3,500 acres, that area. Also, coordination of master planned communities among multiple jurisdictions. And in this case, we're talking not only the ones in unincorporated Salt Lake County, but the majority of the master planned communities are within cities in the west and southwest Salt Lake County. And there are opportunities there for coordination. A West Bonneville Shoreline Trail. What are some of the recommendations for this area? First and foremost, establish a regional land conservation plan and process. County to collaborate with other jurisdictions in negotiating with Rio Tinto for land conservation and access to the Oquirrh Mountains in the future. And then continue the mining reclamation process. And this process has multiple state divisions involved in that, and then the county health, and then also Environmental Protection Agency. Potential future land uses could include conservation, recreation, master plan communities, industrial, commercial. Also a recommendation to update master plan community process, requiring detailed planning of utilities, transportation, housing, land conservation, development agreements, job, zoning, and then complete communities. And a complete community is not just housing, but also commercial, retail, civic, institutional, recreation, open space. That's a complete community, and that's the opportunity with larger areas. The last one, again, talking about the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, but now is a good time to plan that out, work on agreements and alignments for the whole Oquirrhs. This is a future land use map, talking about what this land could look like in the future. And the first thing I want you to look at is the red diagonal line. And the red diagonal line, or that hatch area, means limited development until post-mine closure. And what we mean by that is that we don't see significant changes on that area until the mine is closed, or there's been some kind of significant changes in mining operation. The area on the north in brown is reclaimed historic mine area, areas in gray industrial, areas in pink color, potential for master plan communities, areas in green, conservation areas, in yellow, recreation areas. Let you take a look at that map for a minute. And then, and a big part of planning is how land use and transportation work together. And now we're going to have Helen Peters and Thomas McMurdy from our transportation team talk a little bit about the transportation part of the general plan.
Great, thank you so much, Jake. As I was introduced, Helen Peters, the Transportation Program Manager for Salt Lake County. And first, I just wanted to talk about the land use and transportation relationship. All of you are, I'm sure, are very aware of this, but transportation and land use planning go hand in hand. And there are transportation improvements that occur as land is developed. Sometimes major pieces of regional infrastructure go in first, but basically it all results in improved mobility and access to the places that individuals want to go within a reasonable amount of time. And as land use changes, then we go back to the land use and transportation planning, making sure there is good connectivity between regional and local networks, and then within the local networks, also making sure that there's good connectivity so that transit can optimally perform and that you can reach destinations within, say, about 1/4 of a mile in other modes besides a single occupant car. Okay, next slide. So we're going to talk about who is responsible for planning in this area. And there are two entities. One is Wasatch Front Regional Council. They are a metropolitan planning organization, and they're responsible for transportation planning among a number of different counties in the Wasatch Front area, and Salt Lake is one of them. And they put together a region every 4 years by federal directive. They put together a regional transportation plan that provides a 30-year plan for roadway improvements. And we even have a phase that is unfunded. There are needs, but they are not funded at this time. So this regional transportation plan is right now 2019 to 2050. Right now they're starting to work on the 2023 to 2050 plan. So stay tuned and be looking for those invitations for public input because those are important. So as you can see on this slide, you can see a lot of different lines. You see the blue lines are for active transportation in the near term. And then it proceeds out to 2031 and 2041. So there's some planned projects that we've looked at, but as you can see in this area, there is one route that right now we're looking at on the regional transportation plan, the yellow line, which is an Oquirrhs Boulevard, which is west of U-111 and will probably be at the toe of the hill of the Oquirrhs. So this is active transportation. The next grouping is roadways. So there is roadway planning here. You can see the red is the first 10 years of the plan. The kind of orange colors the second 10 years, and the last is yellow. And again, you can see that Oquirrhs Boulevard that hugs up against the Oquirrh Mountains and goes up Butterfield Canyon. So you can see there are a lot of roadway connections that are part of this. And I'm going to come back to roadways in just a moment as well. But Herriman Parkway extension, U-111 widening, the U-111 past about 90th South will be realigned to become probably 7300 West. So those are all things that are very dynamic right now. And the last is transit. And this is the transit plan that has been developed as part of the regional transportation plan. Again, over 30 years, and you can see different colors of green indicate the time when the transit possibly will come in. So there'll be more core routes, more bus rapid transit, and the core route is much more frequent than just a regular bus route. And a bus rapid transit is about mobility. It's, off-board ticketing. It's not stopping at every stop, but rather trying to get people from point A to point B. And that would be like on 5600 West. I know that you might be familiar with that there is bus rapid transit planned for 5600 West, and that will connect from the southwest portion up into the International Center and then downtown to the Intermodal Center. So next, so the other planning group that is in charge of transportation planning is the Greater Salt Lake Municipal Service District, and those are Salt Lake County. They contract with Salt Lake County engineers, but the Municipal Service District provides the services for the unincorporated area. So they are also involved with transportation planning. I want to talk a little bit about the Southwest Salt Lake County Transportation Study that is just wrapping up at this point. And we, Wasatch Front, the county, the cities, all came together and we looked at how can we help East-West travel time improve, and how can we look for better mobility in this area and then beyond into the unincorporated county as that develops over time. And so this study was undertaken, and what they did is they took the regional transportation plan and they looked through travel modeling to see how it performs. And while it performed well, there were some additions that could have been made or could be made that would help the travel time and mobility in the area. And as you can see here, it's called the preferred scenario. So there are some things that are already in the Wasatch Front Regional Council regional transportation plan, but then we added on some other projects that will help improve time. And one of the biggest things that you might notice in the roadway scenario is there is a connection between the Mountain View Corridor and Bangerter Highway at 126 South. And so that will have a huge impact there. in terms of, or the travel model showed that there would be a great impact by putting that piece of transportation infrastructure in, and it will really help cut down travel times. And then transit, as you can see, we looked at core services, which are about 15 minutes. There's also core service at 5 minutes along Redwood Road. And there we're looking at some different sort of technology, possibly an autonomous transit that UTA has been interested in looking at. So there are some other options there. And then active transportation, you can see that there's a regional network, and with each city, there's also your local plan. So the active transportation network looks somewhat regional here, but there's also, remember, there's active transportation. And I just wanted to talk about one thing I forgot is when we talked about this plan, took the Wasatch Front Regional Transportation Plan, we also included each of the city's master transportation plans and incorporated those, then did the travel demand modeling, and then looked at, well, what could we add to help decrease the travel time and improve mobility. So that's what happened. So basically for active transportation, about 22% of the people within this study area can get somewhere within a half a mile, but after the preferred scenario has been completed, it will be more like 78% of people in the study area will be within half a mile of the transportation backbone, the active transportation backbone. So that will help, because usually most people are willing to bike about a mile to a destination. Most people walk about a fourth of a mile to a destination. So that's important. Now, this preferred scenario is pricey. The regional transportation plan is $3 billion to, if we built it out in this area, $4 billion to have the regional transportation plus selected projects, but the preferred alternative is about $5 billion. So certainly that speaks to needing to identify funding, and then also making sure that all the projects go into the regional transportation plan. So as you see advertisements for input into the 2023 plan that will be coming up probably within 6 months or so, then that will be an important time to say that we want to have the preferred scenario for the Southwest Salt Lake County area. This will certainly help with travel time. We also looked at vehicle hours traveled per household, and those were down. Ridership, we wanted to make sure that if we put in transit infrastructure, there would be ridership. That's there. Access to opportunity, trying to get people close to jobs and educational opportunities via transit. That was important, as well as access to opportunities via auto. So I put down at the bottom of this page here is the Wasatch Front, where you can find the study. And within about a month, there will be a storyboard up there and much more information. This is just a preliminary piece that was shown to the mayors and leadership of cities yesterday. So it's just fresh off the press right now. So next slide. So I want to talk about why it's so important to have regional connectivity. And one of the reasons why is because right now a lot of this area is such that you're using a regional system to make local to make local access work, and that causes some conflict. So we're going to look at more active transportation connections to help people. They can leave their home on their bike and they can go up to the canyons and recreate. Transit, so that that as new opportunities are north of I-80, such as the new state correctional facility, the International Center, that job opportunities are also available. And there needs to be many ways to get different places, and that's why there needs to be multiple corridors to help with the east-west connections, and then the system-to-system interchange between Bangerter and Mountain View Corridor at 126. So Next slide. Okay, and local connectivity is just as important. So you have the regional network that you work with, but at your everyday level, you are using a local connectivity point. And these dashed lines that are in red and green are not what's planned for the roadway or anything like that at this point. Remember, this is still all land that will be determined how it's going to develop through master development agreements with developers. And they're required as part of their application to come in with a traffic and circulation plan that will be approved by the Great Salt Lake MSD. So they will be very much still involved, and there's plenty of time for public input. But your local connectivity is about where you live. It's walking down the street to get some milk and bread, or it's getting not having to walk more than 1/4 of a mile to get to a bus station. So it's important that as you connect into the regional system, you also look very much at connecting your community with, you know, library, making sure you can get to the senior center, all sorts of places. Okay, last slide.
Thank you, Helen. And if I could add just emphasis that this was a diagram and not a plan in any shape or form, just a diagram emphasizing connectivity.
Yeah. So you think about, you know, you can just walk down the street and get what you need to at the 7-Eleven or the fast food. You know, it's just making it easy for you to get around.
Thank you, Helen. Brian, I believe we are ready to move on to the panel. So if you want to again introduce our panel briefly, and then also instructions for participating. And I see we have a number of questions already. Thank you.
There are some good ones. Thank you. So just a reminder about how to ask questions. We have a number already, so I'm happy to see that people have figured it out. Lots of information in the video, the presentation. So, you know, don't be shy about asking lots of questions, making comments, please. As a reminder, let's see, Hillary, could you put up the people, the panelists, please, first? And okay, just to remind you who's here. Helen, who was just speaking about transportation. Ryan Perry, who's over regional planning and transportation. Jake Young, planning manager, Jordan Carroll, communications, Christy Dahlberg from Wasatch Front Regional Council, that the long range planning organization that Helen was talking about, Thomas McMurtry, transportation consultant, and Shane Swenson from the Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. Okay, a reminder about how you ask a question, very simple. Just click the Q&A button and then type in your question, hit enter, and it'll pop up, and we will, I'll read the question and let people answer. If you want to ask your question verbally, you certainly can do that. Just click on the raise hand button on the Zoom control panel on your screen, and a little hand will go up on your next to your name, and we will call on you as we go through the questions. So let's get right to it. Let's see here. There are, thank you. So, Hillary always reminds me of the ground rules. Be civil. Everyone participates, no one dominates. I'm sure people have seen these before. Everybody's opinion counts, of course. Please don't interrupt, which is not much of an issue on Zoom. Always keep an open mind, as we all do, hopefully. State your questions, comments clearly, and then the golden rule, respond, you know, how you would want to be responded to. So, okay, questions. Let's see. This is from Ashley Grace. And she says, Jenny Wilson, Mayor Wilson mentioned sustainable growth. This is very important to me and my community. Environmental issues are the highest priority when I vote. What steps are you taking to protect wildlife in Utah? I am in Copperton and I see so many birds of prey hawks, eagles, owls, and lots of wildlife. How do we protect them as we grow? I'm sick of seeing dead animals on the side of the road because they weren't considered in cities' growth plans. Lot to unpack there, Jake. Environmental issues, roads. Would you like to start and then?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, as part of this process, we are mapping out habitats and looking at that. In our vision document, we talk about preservation of riparian areas, hilltops, critical habitats, also updating ordinances to allow for that. One thing we talked about recently with the Planning Commission is improving our dark sky ordinance. Lighting at night can have significant impacts on birds and their migration patterns. So we are looking at dark skies. Part of that also with birds is buildings and glass. Potentially building standards could be looked at as well. And then I don't know, maybe Helen or someone wants to speak on wildlife getting hit by vehicles. I know that happens quite a bit in Western Salt Lake County and in Southwest as well. Ryan, do you also have something on that?
No, just I think that wildlife and recreation as well as environment are all different components of this plan, and it kind of shows you how those all work together, and we have to prioritize those different features within the future of the valley. We've been kind of spoiled on the west side for having a lot of the area left, in terms of wildlife, having a great opportunity to roam, and that's certainly an asset that I want to protect.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. Carrie North asks, does Rio Tinto Kennecott have plans to leave the area? It was my understanding they own most of the land along the Ochre Mountains. I have concerns about tailings left behind by the company. I think
that Rio Tinto is kind of showing in our slideshow. We showed it around a 2030 time frame that their current operations is planning. That's of course subject to change, and we'll have to get more information from them. There is remediation requirements from the state and others that we have been talking with and making sure that we include different aspects of that closure within our planning. Ultimately, the environmental state that's left behind is going to be of a major concern. It's also one of the challenges with developing a plan of this size and this scope is that you have a large area that isn't immediately going to be improved or developed. And so we're looking out quite a ways, and that's certainly something that's been on our minds. I don't know if Jake or anyone else has anything else.
I think that's good.
Okay, great. Let's see here. Mayor Dirk Burton asks, how did you choose the industrial areas? They seemed odd shaped and randomly located, yet they are important for job centers. Maybe we could put that future land use map up. I think that's what he's referring to.
Great. Am I not on screen share?
Hillary, there we go.
Okay, I'm gonna, put this up while we're talking about it. The areas identified as industrial are currently being used as industrial areas, many of them in Rio Tinto's mining operation. And not all of them, but some of them are more gradual slopes. The best industrial or areas often are big and flat, but that's not necessarily the case here. But these are areas that have been impacted or currently being used in an industrial function, but not necessarily reclaimed at a process as a community. And these are things that the landowner has suggested.
Okay. Well, we've got that up. Let's deal with a couple other questions here. Kayleen Whitelock asked, can someone please share your definition of rural residential?
Yes, rural residential would be very large lots. Particularly, it's the high country estates area. If you're not familiar with that area, look it up on Google Maps in that area. Large lots on the hillside, really kind of staying as is.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. Tessa Stitzer from the Copperton Metro Council, it looks like, has asked a number of questions that are connected. Let's see here. We have some concerned residents as far as lack of green space and what housing will look like. Copperton has a rich rural history, and we aim to preserve what's left. So I guess a comment more than a question. And then who are you working with in relation to migration and wildlife preservation, not just the birds, but wildlife as well?
I'll answer the last one first. We have been working with and talking with DWR in terms of wildlife. Also Camp Williams, they know quite a bit about the wildlife in their area. And then other professionals and agencies as involved. And if you have anybody specific that you recommend also regarding wildlife, besides Division of Wildlife Resources and DNR and also BLM, we've been working with as well, and they've shared some of their data with us. So please send that along. In terms of open space, and not only in the green areas or the yellow in terms of open space, but also we see open space, parks, trails, natural areas as being an integral part of planned communities, requiring significant percentage of planned community areas to have open space within them. So not just the green areas, but also plenty of areas in the planned community to have recreation. Daybreak has a lot of recreation areas with their trails and their open spaces and their lake area and things like that. Did I hit them all, Ryan?
And Brian, can I add a couple of points there?
Sure.
There is an absolute recognition that Copperton is its own municipality that has its own authority on planning, and so Salt Lake County is not the planning authority for the Copperton Metro Township, and so we want to work in cooperation with you and what you see those areas that are outside of your municipal boundaries and what that should become. I saw on the question, what's to become of those areas, and we have scheduled some municipal meetings with our local officials to try to address specific questions and concerns just like that. So we want to hear your input and to see what your plans are for those type of areas. In addition to that, I think that Mayor Burton's question of the industrial areas probably wasn't answered fully. And I think that that was that little dimple that kind of juts out there to West Jordan. And I believe that was by reviewing surrounding plans and what they had planned for those areas is how we came up with that those industrial areas. But anyways, I believe that's the answer. I'll turn to Jake if that wasn't, but I don't want to not answer your question, Mayor.
I do want to mention that since we met with West Jordan, this area you see the C there for commercial, more in the line of business park commercial areas. Also, I just want to mention we know that Copperton just finished updating their general plan. Looks like it was done last fall through the MSD. We do have a copy of the latest general plan. We've been reviewing it. I've looked at it myself. It has a lot of really good suggestions, and we are looking at each city's and metro towns general plan. They provide recommendations for their cities and towns, and then we take those and look at, okay, how can those recommendations work with the county's unincorporated area.
And then lastly, on that topic, I know that Councilmember Stitzer had to leave because Copperton was meeting. That was partly why we created 4 meetings, is so that they had an opportunity to come. So I'm sorry if we combined you in this one and we have that conflicting meeting. We were hoping to give you plenty of opportunities, but also we do plan on meeting with the municipals.
And I'll just point out also that if a question does not get answered tonight, you can do that at the other 2 meetings we're having, but also on the website, there is a comment function that you are free to ask a question on as well. Excuse me. Okay, let's see here. Another Copperton question about Copperton. I see that Copperton is going to be surrounded by MPC. Can the town position to have the green conservation area surround Copperton as a buffer zone and then have the MPC zone start? Who would like to take that one? Jake?
Sure. That's exactly why we're here today, to listen and receive feedback. I'm going to make a note of it right now. That's something that we'll look at. I can see that I've been to Copperton. I know the town. I haven't lived there, but I've driven through there a number of times, and it is beautiful and quaint. And I can see the value of that. So we're here listening. Thank you.
And I will say, there have been a couple other Copperton questions regarding animal overpasses, which I don't think that we had contemplated at this point, but I think that those are the exact type of conversations that we want. And so if you work through the different jurisdictions who may or may not have ability to put those in and how those look, that's a great conversation to put on our list.
Yeah. Great. There are several comments about this. Thank you, Ryan, for pointing that out. Let's see here. Okay, couple of questions from Bob Paxton. First is a transportation question. Are the $3 to $5 billion transportation estimates only for the North and Central regions, and how will they be funded? And then the second question is about water. Where will the water come from? Any new projects without affecting the Great Salt Lake? And he says, I applaud the recreation opportunities. Thank you. So let's deal with the transportation first. Helen, would that be the best?
Yeah, I can certainly talk about that. No, it's north and south and east and west. So it definitely is. If we can go back to that preferred scenario screen, we can see that it is both directions. So that definitely is taking into north-south as well as east-west. And I'm sure as soon as Mountain View Corridor hits I-80, that is going to be a game changer in what happens with traffic and how people are traveling around. But there are different, as you can see here for the roadway, it's kind of, we've got 2 north-south, obviously, with the Mount Bangerter and Mountain View, and then we've got U-111 as well, and then there's Redwood Road. But each of these other roadways, those will be improved as well, and then transit and active transportation. Actually, the $3 to $5 billion tag that comes from state funds. It comes from gas tax. There is money that comes through the federal government through our federal gas tax. So, and as you know, there's bonding that can occur. The state legislature can choose to bond. We had some one-time money that was put into transportation this time. So there are a number of different ways that transportation projects can be funded. So one of the things, the regional transportation plan has to be fiscally constrained. So prior to that being published, they need to determine that we will have enough revenue coming in to pay for the improvements. And I don't know, Christy, if you want to talk to that, or Thomas. But
Yeah, Helen, the one thing I guess I would add about those dollar amounts is that they're stretched out over 30 years. This is not something we have to like worry about coming up with in the next year. And it's UDOT has all the funding mechanisms that you mentioned to work on these projects for decades to come.
And that's why we have an unfunded phase. It's like we only have so much money. So some projects, while they're important and get listed in the unfunded page section, that's where they stay until a need is determined.
Okay.
Okay.
Other half of that is, where is all the water coming from? We have a water.
Yeah, Shane, can you
Shane?
answer that? I thought we might have some discussion on water, and we appreciate your time and joining us. Shane from Jordan Valley Water Conservation District.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's the one question that we're dealing with all the time with these expanding areas in the West. And the biggest answer to that is conservation. We've hit a point now in the past, we've been able to have as much water as we want, but to moving forward, if we're going to have enough water, conservation is going to be the key. And that's what we're working towards, having people change their mindset on their landscaping. And we're not talking just having xeriscape, we're talking nice landscapes, but landscapes that are water efficient. And that's the one thing with all the new developments. If they don't start installing those type of landscapes now, we won't have enough water for the future. We won't have enough water for this area. And I don't know if we'll be able to have development without that water. And we may even have to consider starting to pay to have old landscapes ripped out and have them replaced with water efficient landscapes. But that gets expensive, and I'm sure that that's what's going to happen in the future is all the cheap water, inexpensive water to treat and develop is used up. And so we're looking at other sources for water. And I read that there's some concern about that development and the Great Salt Lake. That is a concern, and that's something that we're going to have to address, being able to keep the lake and also provide drinking water for the residents of Salt Lake Valley. And they're very connected, and we're going to have to develop some unique ideas for that area. And I know we've had a lot of discussions with Kennecott. Kennecott owns a lot of water rights, and we'll have to have a lot of discussions with other entities that have water rights in the valley to make sure that we have enough for the future. Hopefully that answers the question.
Brian, can I add on to that a little bit?
Sure.
Which is that, Salt Lake County is not in the water service delivery business, which just means that we have to rely on water service providers to say whether or not they can service new development. So we can plan for as much development as we want, but unless there's someone to provide that water for them, that development cannot occur. And I saw the message from Corbin Lee within the same context for, water, wastewater, and sewer. Those are all important questions that we have as key components of what needs to be addressed before development can come online.
Okay. Thank you. It's a question about trails. I'm curious about the Bonneville Shoreline Trail on the west side. Where would it be, and how would it connect to other trails networks? Excuse me.
Well, I think certainly we don't know the exact alignment right now. That is something that Salt Lake County Parks and Recreation is working on. And yes, it certainly would connect, because it is a regional trail. It would connect with other smaller or not as long trails. You know, the Bonneville Shoreline Trail will actually kind of circle the valley ultimately when it's completed.
And I'll just add that they were also looking at some larger trails that would connect to that too. You know, a lot of planning still needs to happen in the future, but I know that there are, West Jordan, for example, is planning for, you know, trails along their canals and washes that will eventually go out and connect to the shoreline trail on the west side.
Mayor Dirk Burton had a comment. I would love a paved bicycle trail over the mountain. So as a comment, so great. Let's see here.
Brian, do we have any raised hands for?
Yes, well, yes, those Hillary has been copying them in as questions, I believe. So.
Okay, so no verbal questions.
No, they have also asked questions, but they've raised their hands as well. So.
Oh, great. Okay. Let's do that. Let's see. I see two on here. Steve Schlesinger, who also has a written comment. Steve, would you like to make a verbal comment? If so, unmute your mic and ask the question. And if your question's already, you've typed in a question as well. So if it's the same thing.
Steve is using an older version of Zoom, and so I'm not actually able to unmute him.
Oh, okay.
So I apologize, Steve.
If your question, so what I'll read his question or his comment here. And if that's not everything, please type in more. Let's see. He says, and yet with the current development being done in the southwest part of the county, the roads will not be improved in time to handle the new residents. Why is new housing development approved when the road infrastructure cannot handle it? I can see doing business development, which will bring in more revenue to improve the roads with minimal impact to congestion. I would be open to having a further, more detailed discussion regarding these issues. So that sounds like a Ryan response to me.
Sure, and I really appreciate the question because you know, we're feeling the impact of traffic in this area, and it's a high growth area, and you know, I'm assuming you're talking about the Olympia Hills area being approved, and that was a zoning approval. So the next step is for more detailed community structure plans and different transportation studies and how those transportation studies are going to work together and be paid for. And so, you know, as that development progresses, a lot of those questions can be answered in more detail at that time. This is a high-level planning document saying if and when development would come, what does that look like? And so that's kind of what we're trying to focus on here. But I understand the context of your question, which is, you know, we're struggling with transportation, we're struggling with congestion. How can we even think about new growth? And it's a complicated question to answer because you know, there are different property or private property rights in terms of you know, addressing you know, what they can and can't do on their property. And I think that what we are wanting to commit to is doing that in a well thought out way, that we have a plan for transportation as those development applications come in and as those new communities come online. So I appreciate the question.
Ryan, if I could add just a couple things. When looking at growth and planning, it's important to understand that in Utah, the majority of our growth is from natural increase. That's Utahns having babies, that's families, creation of new households. So that growth is mostly occurring internal with some outside in terms of moving in. That's part of how the growth is happening and ongoing, being internal. And then also one relationship between transportation and planning is that when you have centers with mixed uses, when you have connectivity between streets, that's when you start to get more out of your dollars. And by increasing use of the connectivity and also the centers and key locations, that's when we reduce the cost of that infrastructure by combining good land use planning with transportation planning.
And Steve, yeah, we can reach out and have a further conversation.
More? Great, wonderful. Thank you. Let's see here. Transportation question. Can we ensure that freeway interchanges are below ground? All of the new overpasses are such an eyesore, creating a lot of noise pollution, and we have lost some views of the Wasatch Mountains. We don't want to lose the view of the Oquirrhs. Is that a Helen response, or Christy, or?
Be happy to talk about that too. You know, this is something that UDOT, who gets involved in all of the interchanges that are built in the state, really, you know, considers every aspect of the design, build, the construction of it. They look at view sheds, they look at subterranean water, they consider everything that goes into the interchanges, the cost, the impacts, you know, what can be, they look at the soils and the depths, I mean, all kinds of things that you know, help them, inform them about the decisions that they make in terms of whether it's an overpass or an underpass. And every single one is unique. So, you know, there's no kind of universal answer that we can apply to all interchanges.
Okay.
Yeah, on one thing on that, maybe we can help get her connected with UDOT specifically to talk about which Bangerter intersections. I mean, specifically Bangerter, Mountain View is out of this planning area, but Helen and Thomas knows those people, and we can get you connected.
Lori, I actually answered your question via email just a little while as we were starting this call. But basically, it's, as you know, Bangerter is a state route, and whether it goes under or over, there are definitely technical considerations. But for the most part, it's a negotiation with the city. And so I would suggest your best shot is to currently reach out to the mayor and city council in your area, and then also stay tuned because UDOT is going to be doing the environmental for all of the not completed Bangerter intersections to interchanges, and they will have a public input time frame. And so if you can stay tuned to that, and then if you would like me to follow up and we can talk about a specific interchange or whatever, we can do that. But just so you know that.
Wonderful. Let's see, a raised hand. Aaron Dixon, if you would like.
Jenna was actually raising her hand first, so if we could go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Jenna Call has a written question, but also a hand up. If you'd like to make a comment verbally, please do so. Unmute your mic and let's go ahead.
Yes, sorry, this is actually Bowen called. My wife's Jenna. We're just using her Zoom account. So
great, okay.
Guys speaking, it's probably because that's what it is.
Wonderful.
I just kind of from my angle of what we've been looking at, we're really excited to see new development and the thought that's gone into all of this. One of my concerns, though, is and more of a question of kind of how the process works. There have been a lot of questions that have gone up from concerned people, and kind of the answer has been that that's going to be a great conversation to have, and then it just kind of dies there. Who, where, and why do these conversations happen, and who do they happen with? I think a lot of questions concerning the development around Copperton or trails, you know, it kind of seems like the answer has been the same. And so being kind of new to the area, I'm curious to see who has those conversations and when those happen. I know this is a big, long, you know, decades out plan, but what's the take on that?
Yep, that is a good question. It is difficult to know how all the planning processes work and fit together. Ryan, would you like to
Jake, do you have your slide that you can go over again?
The future land use?
The different plans and the detail attached to them.
Yes, excuse me. Yeah.
So the answer is that you know, as we have vacant land and we have visions and goals, which is what we're trying to establish here. And so we're trying to set within this current setting, what are our goals for this area and what is the vision for this area? And then those will be taken and they'll be formed into what's called transportation master plans for the area. Those are, you know, the property owners then have capital improvement plans, and those get turned into zoning and site plans. And so as the area comes online, we start to see more detail attached to that. And that's when we can really answer a lot of those detailed questions of what is this area going to look like, what's being proposed for it, and how does that fit in with surrounding communities. So right now we're saying this is the vacant land throughout all of the unincorporated areas of Salt Lake County. And these are the areas that we believe are developable. What is our vision and goals for developing those? And those are the 7 different goals that Jake had listed out earlier. So Jake, I don't know if you want to add more detail to that.
Yes, I'd encourage you to go to our project website and look at the vision. Also, in some of the different groups, we have the Planning Commission, and with the Planning Commission, we have monthly updates, monthly discussion with that. Also, we are talking with, I mean, we're talking with everybody. You ask about what conversations are happening, and they're happening with all planning partners. Salt Lake County has a Parks and Recreation department. They do regional plans, and they also do regional trails. Salt Lake County Parks and Recreation is responsible for the Bonneville Shoreline Trail on the east part of Salt Lake County, and they're also going to be responsible for the Bonneville Shoreline Trail on the west part. In our meeting next Monday, Parks and Rec will be talking a little bit about the plan for the Butterfield Canyon area, and they'll be joining us in that meeting.
And I will say, you know, this is a great time to be involved because we're at a vision and goal stage, and the plan is yet to be written. We're trying to get the feedback to say, are these the right objectives for the area before we write the plan? And so this feedback and your concerns and your questions that you're asking are the exact things that we want to be able to hear and say, these are things that need to be addressed within the plan.
Ryan, I would just add to that all of this, what we're talking about, is actually part of the plan. These are the big ideas of the plan, and the vision, the discussion, all of that. And so that's why we're sharing this with the public, receiving input as we modify and work on the more detailed parts of the plan.
Okay, we're almost out of time, but let's cover a couple of other questions quickly if we can. There are a couple questions about future of the connecting Salt Lake County to Tooele County through Butterfield Canyon. Would someone like to?
Sure, I can
update about
address
that?
that. Yeah, I can take that, Brian. There was a study completed that looked at connectivity between Butterfield Canyon, going over Middle Canyon, and then into Willa. And it was, and I can certainly, if you reach out and contact us, I can certainly send you the study. In fact, you might even be able to Google it and find, I think it was called the Overview Connector Study. And it was determined that at this time it was very expensive because there needed to be some tunneling that occurred. And so it was kind of put on hold at that point. But if you reach out, I can get a few more details on that.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Let's see here. Water, trying to find one we haven't touched on. Any long-range plans or ideas for the reclaimed open pit mine? Is that a Jake question or response?
Sure, I'll start with that. The big open pit mine, my understanding in talking with the landowner is after it is reclaimed, it'll be closed off to the public. for public safety. I don't know of any usage of it. Maybe in the future that can change. Some of the other areas that have been mined could be certainly reclaimed for recreation, or even, I mean, Daybreak is built on a reclaimed area as well. But the big pit, unfortunately, all that I know is that it would be closed off. We have received a lot of fun comments and suggestions on that, but that's what my understanding is. Ryan or anybody else want to add to that?
It's a difficult thing to plan for in the future, and right now I think that there's safety concerns that we're planning on that, just taking a process to figure out its use and not being within our proposed plan. But I think that there's lots of creative uses that might come that way.
Okay, let's, since we're talking about reclamation, let's end with a question about several comments about, are there ways for people to be involved in reclamation efforts as volunteers, or to help preserve habitats and wildlife habitats?
I don't know about opportunities for reclamation. I think the habitat part especially is fantastic, and we do need volunteers for that. I do want to say that my discussion with the Oquirrh Foundation is that they're hoping to have a cleanup this spring in Butterfield Canyon, debris pickup, graffiti removal, trash. They're organizing that. So Google the Oquirrh Foundation and take a look there, and they may be posting something about a spring cleanup in Butterfield Canyon, and that's a great place to start, and it certainly is needed there.
Yeah, and just to add on a little bit is that Salt Lake County doesn't have any authority when it comes to that remediation or cleanup, and so that's partly why we can't say this is how you get involved, is because we're wanting to get involved too. And so everything that's attached to this has further public input. This is a starting point and certainly not an ending point. And so as those conversations happen, we will be transparent on how to get involved within those different applications at the time that it's happening, and that we can impact how those things occur. Currently, I'm not aware of a public process that's open for those remediation type discussions.
Okay. Well, we've covered a lot of ground tonight, and still there's a lot more to cover, I'm sure, as we go through this process. As Ryan said, it's a starting point, a lot more discussion, comment opportunities available. We have our two next meetings coming up tomorrow night and on Monday night. And I'm seeing a lot of questions and answers being responded to in the chat box as well. So thank you to our panelists for responding to the questions there. You may also go to the website, which let's put that up on the screen if we can as we end here. Hillary, the next two meetings and the website.
And you can continue to submit questions through that website as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, if we didn't get to something today, feel free to type it on into the website. Oh, it's not on that slide, I guess. slc.org/west-plan is what it is. So I just want to emphasize thank you to everybody for taking time out of your evening to take part in this process. It's an important first step in the long-range planning for the west edge of Salt Lake County. There we go. Thank you very much, the website. As we mentioned, the planning process will continue throughout about the end of the year. Next steps will be to go to the Planning Commission and then to the County Council. There will be opportunities for public engagement at both of those venues as well. So with that, I'm going to wrap up and just say thank you for spending your time with us tonight. Thanks to our panelists for their responses, and we look forward to seeing you at an upcoming meeting. So thank you, and have the rest of a good night.
Thank you.